Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is the HTC Desire 510. Now, HTC is kind of trying to elevate their efforts in the low to mid-range category right now. There for a while, they kind of devoted themselves to the hero phones, the upper range, and now they're kind of getting back into putting out some lower and mid-tier options, and that's what the Desire 510 is all about. The prices on this device, it released just a couple of days ago. You can find it on Sprint. You can find it on some of the MVNOs around Sprint, like Boost Mobile. You're going to find different prices for this device, and that's a pretty critical part of my, pretty important part of my review. On Sprint, if you go to Sprint, you're going to find it for $216, but on Amazon, you'll find it for $120 off contract. Boost, you can actually get it for $100 flat off contract. So it's definitely on the lower price range as far as that is concerned. So let's take a look at the specs here real quick. 4.7-inch display, 480 by 854. That's 208 pixels per inch. So it's pretty low. We'll get to that in a second. It's running a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon 400 processor with 1 gig of RAM. It also has 4 gigs of storage. And if you have had a smartphone, you know that 4 gigs gets eaten up really quick. So keep that in mind. The good news is underneath this back cover here is a micro SD card slot that can store up to 128 gigs of extra storage. So I would say that's almost like a guarantee. If you get this phone, you might as well just pick up an SD card to throw in there. 5 megapixel rear-facing camera. 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera. It is running, this particular device especially, this is an LTE-capable device. So it's running on Sprint's Spark network, and that's kind of a big key for this device. It's a low-cost entry for LTE speed and connectivity. It's a 2100 milliamp hour battery on the back. Again, that is also removable, so you can swap that out if you have a backup battery. There's no NFC on here. It's running 4.4, Android 4.4 with Sense 6. Overlay, and if you like HTC's Sense UI, you're going to get some of the splashes. Like this is Blink Feed, which is kind of like a merged, kind of combined social network feed, so you get everything in one feed. But you're not going to get all of their extra bells and whistles, and get to that in a second. They also have a bunch of different colors. So if you want to customize this, you have 4 choices. You have a deep gray, a white. This is a navy blue color that you're seeing here, and jet black. Although it kind of looks purple to my eyes. What would you say?
I'd say it's a midnight blue.
Yeah, okay, so it's blue. I get my blues and my purples confused, I suppose. So just take a look at the design real quick. If you're familiar with HTC's recent design language over the past couple of years, you'll definitely see some of the design notes from the HTC One, both the M7 and the M8. Has a little bit of that, although it's a mono, one speaker up at the top as opposed to stereo speakers. It's maybe a little chunky, but honestly, I think the design is one of the strong suits of this device, especially for such an entry-level device. It's really comfortable, and it's not incredibly heavy, and I think that they made some really good kind of, they made some good choices as far as getting a nice, comfortable phone for such a low price. Let's see here. The camera, I would say there's a couple of picture choices in the TriCaster if you want to show them, but no surprise here. On the lower end devices, regularly what you see are just pictures that really aren't that great, and it's hard to tell when you're looking at it on the display here, but the pictures, when you get them on a computer and really blow them up, there's a lot of kind of blurriness and kind of a blandness to the color, although Tony's looking pretty awesome right there, I gotta say. But overall, it's a fixed focus camera. What that means is there is no way to focus. So you get the focus that you get, and that results in, let's see here, pretty blurry images like Frederic, flowers that really were just super fuzzy and blurry, all that kind of stuff. So big surprise here on a lower end phone. You're not getting it because it has the best camera in the world. So keep that in mind. Performance, I thought this actually performed pretty darn well for being such a low-cost device. Browsing, OS-level stuff is all pretty smooth and everything. It does break down, though, when you get to gaming, and I'll tell you something. Part of this, it's twofold. One, storage limits. With 4 gigs on here, I tried to install one of the games that I test on a lot of devices is Real Racing 3, and I installed it, and it ate up the rest of the remaining storage. I could do nothing with the phone. It said, I've run out of space because of one game. keep that in mind. Also, I was playing Riptide GP2, which is another game I like to do, and it involves kind of moving your phone. Oops, I just turned it off. Moving your phone from side to side in order to steer. And the problem with that is that the viewing angles on the display, see how much that drops out when I angle? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, literally, like the screen goes dark when you angle it too much. So keep that in mind. It can play these nicer games, but you're not going to have a great experience doing it because you can't see half the time. So we might as well talk about the display really quick. As I said, horrible viewing angles, pretty dull, washed out colors, and the resolution of the display is low res. You can definitely tell, like on the lower end devices, after a little while playing with them, what they kind of cheaped out on a little bit to hit that cost. And here it's definitely the display and the camera. Low resolution. The screen actually has this crazy, I don't know, the tactile, the feel of the screen and how it picks up finger marks is way worse than I'm normally used to seeing. So keep that in mind. It got really fuzzy really quick with just a ton of marks, and even cleaning it off can be kind of challenging, and a lot of reflections, as you can see. And then finally, it is running Sense 6 with some of the extras that you've come to know from HTC software, like Blink Feed. Like I said, you can also get the dot view case, which I don't have to review, but it's basically a case that goes over and lets through certain dots to give you kind of like this kind of old school digital readout when it's in the case. Kind of cool. It doesn't have boom sound for enhanced audio quality, though the speaker was, pretty all right. And there's a lot of software included on here. So like I said, that 4 gigs of space gets eaten up quick. Thankfully, you can uninstall some of that stuff. So I was able to do that. Not a problem. So that is it. What do you think so far?
Well,
you're giving me that look.
I'm giving you the look. Well, I'm thinking, well, then who would use this phone? Because it clearly isn't for pleasure. I mean, a lot of people, that the only camera they have is in their phone.
That's true.
And if you're getting it for a young person because of the cost and you're thinking, well, I'll give this to my child, they probably will want to play games. So what really comes to mind is, what about for business? I mean, is this something that you could offer to your employees at a pretty low cost? You really don't want them to be playing games. And
yeah.
They're not supposed to be taking
so.
pictures.
But I mean, really, like straight up, out of the box, 3 of the 4 gigs on this particular device were eaten up by all the other stuff. So you basically have a gig. So I suppose through the enterprise, it could be an option. Mm-hmm. Are the people going to want this device? I guess if it's the only option, it's the only option.
That's true.
And B, if you have anything else that you put onto the devices for your enterprise, you're going to quickly run out of space, and managing documents might be a challenge. So, but yes, micro SD card might save the day there. But it's a really fair question. I think ultimately what this is about is price more than anything. It's, I want a smartphone. I don't have very much money to spend on a smartphone. I have $100. So, hey, here's what you can get for $100. So, so let's do this. Let's tackle the pros here. The design, I think, was a good kind of trade-off for a low-end device. It's really kind of comfortable to hold, and you have a little bit of color customization. LTE capable, which I think is another of its strong suits and probably makes it maybe more enterprise-friendly because it's super fast when you're out on the road. And price on some carriers, though the price is also kind of a con, because if you're on Sprint, $200 unlocked or $220 unlocked for this is way overboard. I would not recommend that. The cons, the display, I really just did not like this display at all. The camera, of course, I didn't expect the camera to be too great, but I was confirmed with that. And then, of course, the limited storage. I really, really fluctuated between try and don't buy on this, only because you have to compare it against similar spec phones or similar price phones, right? If all you have is $100 and you want a smartphone that's reasonably capable, then this might actually be okay, because I understand the kind of peeling back on some of the specs in order to hit $100 out of pocket unlocked for this device. But if you're on Sprint and you're thinking about this device and it's $220 unlocked to get it, don't buy it. Ultimately, I think try. There are other alternatives. The Moto G, for example, is very similar to this device and wins in almost every category. The only thing the Moto G doesn't have is LTE. So if LTE is your thing, if that's what you need, then this might be one of the few games in town. So it's like a try, borderline don't buy. But I think if LTE is important to you, then I think it's worth considering.
There you have it.
So there you go. Whew, the HTC Desire 510. That is the device.